First, I want to wish everybody a happy feast day today. This is November 10th, the feast of St. Leo the Great. But of course, we celebrate this evening the Vigil Mass for tomorrow, the 32nd Sunday in Ordinary Time. And we gather on Veterans Day weekend. Again, recalling the end of World War I. Each year on November 11th, how we reflect upon that sacrifice given by so many who have served our nation over the years, the ultimate sacrifice of those who have given their lives so that we can continue to live free. They model for us in a most heroic and ultimate way the basic call that all of us have been given to live lives of sacrifice and generosity, to give of ourselves to others, and that's certainly the message of our readings today. The first reading tells of that encounter between the prophet Elijah and the widow of Zarephath. The widow's situation is dire. She's completely lost and hopeless. She goes out to the entrance of the city to prepare one last meal before she and her son will die. And there she encounters the prophet who has come to save her. How does he do that? He asks her for food and drink. Think of this moment and the great paradox it presents. She has nothing and she is dying, and the prophet wants something. On a much smaller scale, you and I have these moments, maybe every day. We're doing so much, we haven't been able to get to all those things that we think we need to do. And then there's another demand placed upon us. And certainly we can, I think, understand her response where she basically sighs and responds and says, "I'm sorry, I have nothing left, I can't help you." But the prophet persists, and he proclaims a message of hope and promise. Do not be afraid. Do as you propose, but again, bring me some cake to eat. Again, he's giving her the answer to her problem: to give, to trust that God will provide. She does that, and then we are told that she and her son do not die, but are fed and sustained and live. It's the same situation we see in our gospel. Again, we see a widow who has nothing, who is clinging to life, marginalized as all widows were in that society, helpless, and so tempted to hopelessness. What does she do? Does she hoard what she has, thinking that she can provide for her own security? No, she comes forward and gives all that she has, her whole livelihood. Again, the message is clear. If we have concern or fear or anxiety about anything, the answer is to give of ourselves in whatever way we can, our economic means, to give of our time, of our hearts and our hands. Again, it's the greatness of that sacrifice of all of our veterans who have served our nation, particularly those who have given their lives. It's the ultimate paradox of life. If you want to have, you have to give. And this points to the other paradox in our gospel, that we're not to trust in what we see or what we think, but to trust in God's providence in all things. It can happen in so many ways. We think situations in our life are troublesome. We hear maybe a teaching of the church that we don't agree with, and we rely upon our own way of thinking. But our faith calls us to look beyond what we see to what we don't see. That ongoing action of God in our lives that is constantly in us and working in us. Look again at the gospel in the beginning. It seems like the scribes are the ones who find favor with God. But notice what Jesus says about them. He says they will receive a severe condemnation. Again, it's the widow, the one who is seen to be lacking in everything, who in fact has the greatest thing: total faith and trust in God. Again, we have to always try to remember this truth that God is with us always, and he's acting at every moment of every day to give us everything that we need, to draw us closer to him, to fill us with the fullness of his blessings. Of course, the greatest blessing is when we come here. And again, we encounter a mystery that is beyond our sight. It's described in our second reading in the letter to the Hebrews. Christ's perfect offering to his Father, made once and for all on the altar of his cross, is represented here. Here, you and I come in contact with the risen Christ who gave everything that he had to give. That perfect sacrifice which takes away the sins of the world, so that you and I might be strengthened to then give of ourselves to one another. The widow at Zarephath gave, even though she had nothing, and all was provided for her. The widow in our gospel gave everything that she had, and she was recognized and honored by the Lord. As we recall our veterans this weekend, especially those who have given all, may we too give of ourselves to one another with that firm and absolute trust that God will always provide for everything that we need, so we might then always share what we have with one another.